The Galactic Assembly Station was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated in the space between three star systems, and every important species in the galaxy sent their representatives there. The station was home to diplomats, traders, soldiers, and scientists from over 200 different worlds. Humans had arrived at this station only 2 years ago. First contact had been a surprise for everyone. The galaxy had watched Earth for a long time, waiting for humans to develop faster than light travel. When they finally did, the Galactic Assembly invited them to join as junior members. Today was an important day. The Assembly held a military exhibition every 5 years. Every member species had to demonstrate their combat abilities. It was a tradition that showed strength and built respect between nations. The Empire, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, always performed first. Captain Ho stood at the back of the observation deck with his team. He was a tall man with calm eyes and steady hands. Beside him stood Sergeant, the best sniper in the human military. She was quiet and watched everything with sharp attention. Lieutenant Dongha, their weapons specialist, checked his and made notes. Ambassador represented humanity in all official matters. She was a small woman with gray hair and a patient smile. She had spent 30 years in diplomacy before first contact, and nothing surprised her anymore. The shooting range was enormous. Targets floated at distances from 100 meters to 5 kilometers. Energy shields protected the audience from stray shots. Holographic displays showed views of each target. Commander of the Empire stepped forward first. He was tall and covered in thick blue scales. His 4 arms each held a different weapon. The people had ruled this region of space for 10,000 years, and they never let anyone forget it. "Watch carefully, young species," announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. "This is what true marksmanship looks like." The soldiers moved like machines. They raised their weapons and fired in perfect unison. Every shot hit the center of its target. The displays showed impact after impact, each one exactly in the middle. The accuracy rating appeared on the main screen, 99.8%. The audience of aliens cheered and applauded, turned and smiled at the human delegation. His teeth were sharp and numerous. Other species took their turns. The shot with 4 arms simultaneously and achieved 97% accuracy. The aquatic used sonic weapons that never missed their targets. The silicon-based fired streams of molten metal with 95% precision. Each demonstration earned applause. Each species walked away proud. Then the announcer called for the human delegation. Captain Ho led his team to the firing line. The observation deck grew quiet. Many aliens leaned forward with curiosity. Humans were still new and strange to most of the galaxy. Sergeant took her position. She held a simple rifle that looked primitive compared to the energy weapons other species used. Lieutenant Dongha carried a pistol and a bag of ammunition. "Whenever you are ready," the announcer said. Raised her rifle, she looked through the scope for a long moment. Then she fired. The shot missed the center of the target by almost a full meter. Confused murmurs spread through the audience. Fired again. This shot also missed the center, hitting the edge of the target frame. Her third shot missed the target entirely and struck the wall behind it. Someone in the audience laughed. Captain Ho fired next. His shots landed around the target but rarely in the middle. Lieutenant Dongha performed even worse, with several shots going completely wide. The laughter grew louder. Commander crossed his 4 arms and shook his head. His soldiers made clicking sounds that meant amusement in their language. "Is this a joke?" someone shouted from the crowd. The human accuracy rating appeared on the main screen, 34%. Weapons Master, the marksmanship champion, stood up from his seat. He was older than and covered with scars from ancient battles. His voice was harsh and loud. "This is an embarrassment to the Assembly," he declared. "How did these creatures ever survive on their planet? They cannot shoot straight. More aliens laughed. Some shook their heads with pity. A few looked away, embarrassed on behalf of the humans. Ambassador stood with her hands folded. Her expression did not change. Captain Ho lowered his weapon and showed no emotion. Sergeant continued to look through her scope at the targets, even though the demonstration was over. Commander walked toward the human delegation. He towered over them by nearly a meter. His shadow fell across Ambassador like a threat. Perhaps, he said slowly, humans should focus on other contributions to the assembly. Clearly, combat is not your strength. He paused and smiled again. Maybe you can cook for us or clean our ships. His soldiers laughed loudly at this joke. Ambassador looked up at the massive commander. Her voice was soft and polite. Thank you for your feedback, Commander. We will certainly consider your suggestions. Blinked, he had expected anger or shame. The human's calm response confused him. He turned and walked away, his soldiers following behind. The exhibition continued with other demonstrations, but the humans had become a joke. Aliens whispered and pointed at them. Some took pictures to share with friends back home. The story of the humans who could not shoot would spread across the galaxy within days. High Arbiter watched everything from his private balcony above the main chamber. He was the leader of the Assembly's Security Council, a being of great age and wisdom. His species had no physical form. He existed as a cloud of glowing particles that could take any shape. He had watched thousands of these exhibitions over the centuries. He had seen arrogance and fear, skill and failure, but something about the humans bothered him. They had not seemed upset by their performance. The commander had mocked them openly. The entire assembly had laughed at them. Yet the human captain had shown no anger. The human sniper had shown no shame. The human ambassador had smiled politely and said nothing defensive. Focused his attention on Sergeant. She was still looking at the targets even now. Her eyes moved slowly across the chamber, studying the walls, the ceiling, the support structures. She was measuring something. But measuring what? The High Arbiter made a note in his private files. He had learned long ago that the most dangerous species were not always the ones with the biggest weapons or the best accuracy. Sometimes, the most dangerous species were the ones who stayed calm when everyone laughed at them. He would watch these humans carefully. Far below, Captain Ho gathered his team. They walked toward the exit without hurrying. None of them looked back at the mocking crowds. Lieutenant Dongha spoke quietly so only his teammates could hear. They measured exactly what we expected. Captain Ho nodded. Good. Now we have baseline data for every surface in the station. Sergeant finally lowered her rifle. A small smile crossed her face for just a moment. 17 structural weaknesses, she said. 23 perfect ricochet angles. 41 acoustic dead zones. Ambassador walked beside them, still wearing her patient smile. Let them laugh, she said. Laughter makes people careless. The humans left the exhibition hall and returned to their quarters. Behind them, the galaxy continued to mock the species that could not shoot straight. None of them understood what they had really witnessed. 3 months had passed since the exhibition, and the jokes about human marksmanship had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Entertainment programs played clips of Sergeant missing her targets. Comedians made fun of human soldiers. Children on distant worlds played games where they pretended to be shooting like a human, which meant missing everything. Captain Ho ignored all of it. He had a mission to complete. The Galactic Assembly had organized a joint patrol along the border with space. The swarm was a hostile species of creatures that attacked anyone who entered their territory. They had been quiet for decades, but recent reports suggested they were becoming active again. The patrol included 3 warships and 1 small human vessel. Commander had requested humans specifically. He wanted to show the assembly that he could work with even the weakest species. It would make him look generous and patient. Captain Ho brought Sergeant Lieutenant Dongha and 12 other soldiers. Their ship, the Horizon, was tiny compared to the battle cruisers. It looked like a toy floating between giants. The patrol moved through empty space for 2 days without incident. Commander spent most of this time sending messages back to the assembly about his leadership and wisdom. He barely spoke to the humans except to give orders. On the 3rd day, they entered a region filled with asteroids and debris. Old battles had been fought here, and the wreckage of ancient ships still floated in the darkness. Humans will stay at the rear, commanded through the communication system. Your weapons are useless anyway. Try not to hit our ships by accident. His soldiers laughed at this joke. They had been making similar jokes for the entire journey. Captain Ho acknowledged the order without complaint. He positioned the Horizon behind the formation and waited. Sergeant sat in the ship's small observation room. She studied the asteroid field through the window, her eyes moving from rock to rock. Lieutenant Dongha worked on his, calculating something that he did not explain. "Contact," someone shouted on the flagship, multiple signatures emerging from the asteroid field. They came without warning. Hundreds of small attack craft poured out from hiding spots among the rocks. They moved like angry insects, fast and unpredictable. Each craft carried a single warrior with 4 wings and razor-sharp claws. The ships opened fire immediately. Their weapons were powerful and accurate. Craft exploded by the dozens. For a moment, it seemed like the battle would be easy. But they kept coming. More and more emerged from the asteroids. Their numbers seemed endless. "They have personal shields," an officer reported. "Our weapons are only effective at close range." This was the advantage. Each warrior wore a small energy shield that absorbed direct hits. Only multiple shots to the same spot could break through, and they moved too fast for that kind of precision. Soldiers began falling. The warriors crashed through ship windows and tore through metal walls. They attacked with claws and acid and terrible screaming sounds. Commander fought bravely. He killed many with his 4 arms and multiple weapons, but even he could not stop the swarm. A blade cut across his chest and sent him falling to the floor. "We need reinforcements," someone screamed into the communication system. "We cannot hold them." Captain Ho listened to the chaos. He looked at Sergeant and nodded. "Move to the front," he ordered. The Horizon accelerated forward. It passed the damaged ships and positioned itself at the center of the battle. The small human vessel looked fragile among the destruction. "What are you doing?" a wounded officer demanded. "You cannot fight, you cannot even shoot straight." Captain Ho ignored him. He opened the ship's boarding hatches and led his soldiers onto the surface of a damaged cruiser. They were everywhere, crawling across the metal like insects on dead meat. Sergeant raised her rifle. Lieutenant Dongha loaded a magazine of special ammunition. The human soldiers formed a line. "Remember your training," Captain Ho said calmly. "The target is not the enemy." They began firing. Commander, bleeding on the floor of his bridge, watched through a cracked window. He expected to see the humans die quickly. Instead, he saw something that made no sense. The humans were missing. Their shots flew past without hitting them. Bullets struck the ship's walls, the floor, the debris floating in space. Not a single shot seemed to find its target. "Fools," whispered, "they truly cannot aim." But then something strange happened. A warrior near Sergeant suddenly collapsed, then another, then 3 more at once. They fell without any visible wounds, their shields still glowing, their armor still intact. More dropped. They clutched their heads and screamed in frequencies that hurt to hear. Their wings stopped working. Their claws opened and released their weapons. Pushed himself up and stared. The humans continued firing. Their shots continued missing, and they continued dying. It made no sense. A commander landed on the hull near Captain Ho. It was larger than the others, with black armor and 4 deadly blades. It charged at the human captain with murder in its eyes. Sergeant fired 3 times. All 3 shots missed the commander completely. They struck a piece of debris floating 10 meters away. The debris shattered. Fragments flew in multiple directions. One fragment struck the commander in the small gap between its helmet and shoulder armor. Another fragment hit the antenna on its head. A third fragment damaged the power unit of its shield. The commander stumbled. Captain Ho drew his pistol and fired once. This shot also missed, hitting the hull near the commander's feet. The bullet ricocheted off the metal surface. It bounced upward at a precise angle and entered the neck joint from below. The commander fell dead. Watched all of this happen. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. The battle continued for 20 more minutes. Human soldiers fired hundreds of rounds. Most shots seemed to miss their targets, but every missed shot bounced, shattered, or deflected into places where bodies had weaknesses. The shields that protected them from direct hits were useless against attacks that came from below, from behind, from inside their own armor joints. Finally, the remaining retreated. They fled back into the asteroid field, leaving hundreds of dead behind. The battle was over. Captain Ho walked across the damaged hull toward Commander. The leader was being treated by medical staff. His wounds were serious but not fatal. How demanded. His voice was weak but filled with confusion. I watched you. You missed everything. Every shot went wide, but they died. How did they die? Captain Ho looked at the commander. His expression showed no pride, no satisfaction. You see targets, he said simply. We see geometry. He turned and walked back toward his ship. Sergeant followed, already reloading her rifle with fresh ammunition. Commander lay on the medical table and stared at the ceiling. He had fought 100 battles against 100 different species. He had never lost. Today, he had almost died because he laughed at humans. The universe had just become much more complicated. The medical bay was quiet now. The battle had ended 3 hours ago, and the survivors were being treated for their wounds. Commander sat on the edge of a medical bed, his chest wrapped in healing bandages. His 4 hands were still shaking. He had demanded answers. The humans had agreed to explain. Captain Ho stood in front of a holographic display. Lieutenant Dongha operated the controls. Sergeant sat in the corner, cleaning her rifle as if nothing special had happened. A dozen officers filled the room. They had all survived the battle. They had all seen humans shooting and missing. They had all watched warriors die from those missed shots. Show them, Captain Ho said. Lieutenant Dongha activated the display. A 3-dimensional recording of the battle appeared in the air. It showed Sergeant firing at a group of. Here is the shot, Dongha said. He slowed the recording and zoomed in. Notice the bullet trajectory. The bullet left's rifle and flew past the. It missed by half a meter. The officers shifted uncomfortably. They had seen enough human misses to last a lifetime. Keep watching, Dongha said. The bullet struck a piece of floating metal debris. Instead of stopping, it bounced at a new angle. The recording showed the bullet's path in glowing lines. The bullet hit another piece of debris and bounced again. It hit a third surface and split into 5 smaller fragments. Each fragment flew in a different direction. One fragment hit in the joint between its arm and body. Another fragment struck the power cable of its personal shield. A third fragment destroyed the communication antenna on its helmet. The shield failed. Its communications died. It could not coordinate with its swarm. It stumbled, confused, and alone. Then Sergeant's second miss created fragments that hit the now unshielded warrior from 3 directions at once. The officers stared at the display in silence. This is impossible, one of them said finally. No one can calculate those angles during combat. Captain Ho looked at Sergeant. She shrugged slightly and continued cleaning her rifle. Humans can, Ho said. We have been doing it for thousands of years. He gestured, and the display changed. Now it showed images from Earth's history. Ancient humans throwing stones that bounced off rocks to hit hiding prey. Hunters using river surfaces to skip stones toward distant targets. Warriors banking arrow shots off shields and walls. Earth is a dangerous world, Ho explained. Humans are not the fastest animals. We are not the strongest. We do not have claws or poison or natural armor. We survived because we learned to think differently. The display showed more examples. Pool and billiards, games where the goal was to use angles and bounces. Basketball players banking shots off backboards. Hockey players ricocheting pucks off walls. We call it geometry, Lieutenant Dongha said. Every surface is a tool. Every angle is an opportunity. We do not aim at targets. We aim at possibilities. Commander spoke for the first time. His voice was rough with pain. The exhibition, he said slowly, 3 months ago, you were not failing. Captain Ho nodded. We were mapping the station. Every missed shot taught us something about the surfaces, the acoustics, the structural materials. Sergeant finally looked up from her rifle. Her eyes were calm and patient. 17 structural weaknesses, she said. If I fired 6 shots at the right walls, I could collapse the entire exhibition hall ceiling. 23 perfect ricochet paths from any position. 41 locations where sound would not travel normally. The officers shifted nervously. They had all been in that exhibition hall. They had all laughed at the humans. They had been surrounded by humans who could have killed everyone there with 6 bullets. You were studying us, said. You were studying the station. You were learning how to destroy everything around you. We were learning how to protect ourselves, Captain Ho corrected. Humans are always outnumbered. We are always smaller and weaker than our enemies. We learned long ago that the environment itself is the greatest weapon. Lieutenant Dongha changed the display again. Now it showed a detailed analysis of biology. Have personal shields that stop direct impacts, he explained. But the shields only work against fast-moving objects larger than 2 millimeters. Smaller fragments pass through. He pointed at this head on the display. Their communication antenna is located here. It connects them to the hive mind. Without it, they lose coordination with other warriors. They become confused and afraid. Another image appeared, showing this body structure. The joints between their armor sections are only 3 millimeters wide, too small for most weapons to target directly, but fragments from a shattered bullet are exactly the right size. Commander closed his eyes. He had served in the military for 60 years. He had fought dozens of species. He had never once considered attacking the empty space around an enemy. You see the universe differently, he said quietly. You see pathways where we see nothing. Captain Ho nodded. Every species has strengths and weaknesses, are powerful and accurate, are numerous and fast. Humans are good at finding solutions that no one else considers. One of the officers stepped forward. He was younger than the others, with curiosity in his eyes. Can this be taught? He asked. Can other species learn to shoot like humans? Sergeant shook her head slowly. It requires seeing the world as connected surfaces, every wall related to every other wall, every angle leading to every other angle. Most species see obstacles. We see highways. She held up a single bullet. This is not a projectile. It is a message that we send through the environment. The environment delivers it for us. The room fell silent. The officers looked at each other with new understanding. They had spent 3 months laughing at humans. They had called them weak, incompetent, useless. They had been completely wrong. Commander stood slowly, his wounds protesting the movement. He walked toward Captain Ho until they stood face to face. I owe you an apology, he said, and I owe you my life. Captain Ho accepted both with a simple nod. The will return, Ho said. They always do. When they come, they will not expect what humans can do. That is our advantage. turned to his officers. No one speaks of this to anyone outside this room. The fewer species who know about human tactics, the more valuable those tactics remain. The officers nodded. They understood. Secrets were weapons too. But knew that secrets could not be kept forever. Word would spread. The galaxy would learn that humans did not fight like other species. And then everyone would start to wonder what else humans could do that no one had imagined. The thought made Commander, veteran of 100 battles, feel something he had not felt in decades. Fear. Not fear of humans. Fear of what it meant to share a galaxy with a species that saw possibilities where everyone else saw empty space. The universe had just become much more interesting. And much more dangerous. Secrets never lasted long in the Galactic Assembly. Within 2 weeks, the story of the border battle had spread to every corner of known space. At first, no one believed it. Humans winning a battle against the swarm. Humans saving soldiers. The same humans who could not hit targets at an exhibition. It sounded like a joke. But then the recordings emerged. Someone on one of the ships had captured everything. The videos showed human bullets bouncing off surfaces, splitting into fragments, striking from impossible angles. The videos went everywhere. Scientists studied them. Military leaders analyzed them. Politicians argued about what they meant. The laughter about human marksmanship stopped. A new emotion took its place. Fear. High Arbiter called an emergency session of the Security Council. The council chamber was a massive room at the heart of the assembly station. Representatives from every major species sat in circles around a central platform. The platform was empty when appeared. His form shifted and glowed as he addressed the assembly. "We are here to discuss the human question," he announced. His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. "I have reviewed all evidence from the border incident. I have also ordered a new analysis of the exhibition from 3 months ago." A holographic display activated above the platform. It showed the exhibition footage that everyone had laughed at. Sergeant firing, Captain Ho shooting, every shot missing its target. "Our weapons experts have studied these recordings carefully," continued. "They have reached a disturbing conclusion." The display zoomed in on each human shot. Colored lines appeared, showing the path of every bullet after it left the weapon. "The humans were not failing," said. "They were conducting reconnaissance." The lines on the display showed bullets bouncing off walls, ceilings, and support beams. Each bounce was recorded and measured. A map of the entire exhibition hall appeared, covered with data points. With these supposedly failed shots, the humans created a complete structural analysis of this station. They identified every weak point, every ricochet surface, every acoustic anomaly. The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many of them had been in that room, laughing at human incompetence. Weapons Master rose from his seat. The old champion looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his face. In its place was something like humility. "I mocked them personally," he said. "I called them an embarrassment to the assembly. I was wrong." He walked to the central platform and added his own data to the display. "My analysts have reviewed every human shot from the exhibition. They identified 17 points where precisely aimed bullets could collapse the ceiling structure, 23 paths where a single shot could ricochet into the crowd, 41 positions where weapons fire would not trigger our security sensors." The chamber erupted with concerned voices. Species who had never spoken to each other now shared worried glances. "They could have killed us all," someone shouted. "They could have collapsed the room while we laughed at them." "But they did not," said firmly. "They gathered information, they prepared for possibilities, and they kept their knowledge secret until they needed it." A representative from the collective stood. Her body clicked and buzzed as she spoke. "This is exactly the problem. Humans think in ways we cannot predict. They see weapons in empty walls. They see attacks in angles of light. How can we trust a species that thinks so differently? Other representatives agreed. Voices rose throughout the chamber. Humans should be expelled from the assembly. Their weapons should be confiscated. They should not be allowed in secure areas. They are too dangerous. Raised his hands and the room slowly quieted. He turned toward the human section of the chamber, where Ambassador sat with Captain Ho and his team. Perhaps, said, we should hear from the humans themselves. Ambassador rose from her seat. She was small compared to most species in the room. Her gray hair and lined face made her look fragile and old. She walked to the central platform without hurrying. The room fell silent. Every eye watched her. I understand your fear, began. Her voice was soft but clear. You have discovered that humans do not think like other species. This makes us unpredictable. Unpredictable things are frightening. She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes from a dozen different species. But consider this. Humans have known about your weapons and capabilities for 2 years. We have studied your ships, your soldiers, your tactics. In all that time, we have never attacked anyone. We have never threatened anyone. We have never used our knowledge for harm. She paused and smiled gently. At the exhibition, we could have demonstrated our true abilities. We could have shown you exactly what human marksmanship can do. Instead, we chose to stay hidden. Do you know why? No one answered. Because we were not sure if you would accept us, continued. Humans have learned from hard experience that displaying strength often leads to conflict. Species fear what they do not understand. They attack what they fear. She gestured toward Captain Ho and his team. These soldiers saved lives. They used their unique abilities to protect your people from the swarm. Is that the action of an enemy? Is that something to fear? Weapons Master spoke again. Why did you hide your abilities? Why let us mock you? Turn to face him. Because laughter is not dangerous. Laughter does not kill. We would rather be underestimated than attacked. We would rather be mocked than feared. She walked back toward her seat, then stopped and turned once more. You see us miss targets and think we are weak. We see possibilities you cannot imagine and choose not to use them. That is not weakness. That is restraint. That is wisdom. She sat down. The chamber remained silent. High Arbiter considered everything he had heard. His glowing form shifted through several colors as he thought. The council will vote, he announced finally. The question is whether humans should remain members of the Galactic Assembly with full privileges and access. The voting began. Species after species registered their choices. The results appeared on the main display. 60% voted to keep humans as full members. 30% voted to restrict human access to sensitive areas. 10% voted for expulsion. The motion to expel fails, declared. Humans will remain members of the Assembly. However, I am ordering increased observation of all human activities. It was a compromise, not full acceptance but not rejection either. Captain Ho leaned toward Ambassador. They are still afraid of us. Nodded slightly. Fear fades, trust is built slowly, we have time. As the session ended, High Arbiter approached the human delegation. His form condensed into something almost humanoid as he spoke privately. Ambassador, I must ask you directly, what else have humans been hiding? Smiled her patient smile. High Arbiter, I assure you, everything we do is for protection, not aggression. That is not an answer. No, agreed, it is not. She walked away with her team, leaving alone with his questions. The High Arbiter had lived for thousands of years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve from primitive tribes to galactic powers. But he had never encountered anything like humans. They were weak and slow and short-lived. They came from a single small planet. They had only discovered space travel recently. And yet somehow, They saw the universe in ways that no other species could imagine. Returned to his private chambers and pulled up every file the assembly had on Earth and its people. He began studying them with new attention. Somewhere in these records was the answer to his question. What else were humans capable of? And more importantly, would the galaxy survive finding out? 6 months had passed since the council vote. Humans remained in the Galactic Assembly, watched carefully but no longer mocked. The jokes had stopped. The laughter had ended. In its place was a cautious respect that grew slowly with each passing day. Captain Ho spent those 6 months walking through the assembly station. He visited every sector, every level, every maintenance corridor. Sergeant accompanied him, always carrying her, always taking notes. Lieutenant Dongha analyzed every piece of information they gathered. No one asked what they were doing. No one wanted to know. The swarm had been quiet since the border incident. Intelligence reports suggested they were rebuilding their forces, adapting their tactics, preparing for something bigger. That something arrived on a quiet morning in the station's artificial spring. Alarms screamed across every channel. The main display in the command center showed a wall of red contacts emerging from space. Thousands of ships, millions of warriors, the largest swarm attack in recorded history. All defense systems active, Commander ordered. He had recovered fully from his wounds and now led the station's military response. All ships to battle positions. The station's defenses opened fire. Weapons destroyed hundreds of craft in the first minute. Sonic cannons shattered thousands more. Water cannons froze attackers solid. But the swarm kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 10 more appeared. They crashed against the station's shields like waves against a rock. Shields at 60%, an officer reported. 50%, 40%. The shields failed. Warriors poured through breaches in the station's hull. They flooded corridors and chambers, killing everyone they found. High Arbiter watched the destruction from the command center. His glowing form flickered with distress. "We cannot stop them," he said quietly. "There are too many." They had adapted. Their new shields absorbed attacks from multiple angles. Their new armor had no gaps for fragments to penetrate. They had studied the border battle and learned from their losses. Commander fought beside his soldiers, but even his 4 arms could not hold back the swarm. The station's defenders fell one by one. Ambassador appeared in the command center. She was calm as always, even as explosions shook the room. "High Arbiter," she said, "request permission for human forces to take command of the defense." Looked at her. His form shifted through colors of fear and hope and desperation. "Can you stop them?" Glanced at Captain Ho, who had entered behind her with Sergeant and Lieutenant Dongha. "We have spent 6 months studying this station," she said. "We know every surface, every system, every connection. Give us command, and we will show you what humans can really do." Had no choice. Traditional tactics were failing, the station was falling. "Command is yours, Captain," he said. Ho immediately activated his communication system. "All human forces, execute Pattern 7, authorization code, geometry." Throughout the station, human soldiers began moving. They did not run toward the fighting. They ran toward specific locations that seemed random and meaningless. A human private fired her rifle at a power conduit on level 47. The shot severed the line, causing a power surge that traveled through the station's electrical grid. Lights flickered in a section 3 kilometers away. The flickering disrupted the navigation sensors of an assault team, causing them to crash into each other. A human sergeant shot a ventilation control panel. The bullet did not destroy the panel, it changed the settings. Air pressure shifted throughout the station. In one section, the atmosphere became too thin for wings to function. Hundreds of warriors fell from the air. Lieutenant Dongha fired a single shot at the floor beneath his feet. The bullet penetrated 3 levels before striking a water main. The flooding that followed swept warriors into a section where human soldiers waited with weapons designed for close combat. Sergeant climbed to an observation deck at the top of the station. She looked out at the chaos of the battle, calculating angles that no other species could see. "I have the command ship," she reported through her communicator. "7 surfaces between me and their communication array." "Take the shot," Captain Ho replied. Steadied her rifle. She was not aiming at the command ship. She was aiming at a piece of debris floating outside the station. She fired. The bullet traveled 200 meters before striking the debris. It bounced off at a precise angle, crossed 300 meters of space, and hit the outer hull of a damaged frigate. The impact created a small explosion that launched a metal fragment across 500 meters of vacuum. That fragment struck a fighter, shattering its engine. The fighter spun out of control and crashed into another fighter. Both wrecks tumbled toward the command ship. The wrecks hit the command ship's communication array at the exact angle needed to destroy it completely. In an instant, millions of warriors lost their connection to the hive mind. They stopped fighting. They stumbled in confusion. They crashed into walls and each other. Throughout the station, human soldiers continued their assault on the environment. They shot walls that collapsed onto positions. They destroyed pipes that released chemicals the insects could not breathe. They changed gravity settings in sections where had gathered. The swarm that had seemed unstoppable began to fall apart. Commander watched in amazement as warriors retreated from every section. They fled back to their ships, back to the safety of space. But even there, human tactics followed them. Strategic shots created chain reactions that destroyed docking connections, cutting off escape routes. Within 2 hours, the attack was over. The swarm retreated into the darkness, leaving thousands of dead behind. The station had survived. Captain Ho found Commander in a corridor filled with bodies. The commander was wounded again, leaning against a wall for support. "I finally understand," said. "At the exhibition at the border and now here, you were never aiming at targets. You were aiming at outcomes." Ho knelt beside the commander. "The target is just where the bullet stops. Victory is where the bullet leads." Laughed weakly. It was not a mocking laugh this time. It was the laugh of someone who had learned something profound. "I spent my entire life learning to hit what I aim at," he said. "You spent yours learning to aim at what matters." In the days that followed, the Galactic Assembly held another vote. This time, the question was whether humans should join the Security Council permanently. The vote was unanimous. High Arbiter delivered the announcement personally. "The human species has proven that strength comes in many forms. They do not fight like other species. They do not think like other species. And because of this, they saved us all." He turned to Ambassador and her team. "You taught us that missing the target can be the most precise shot of all. Welcome to the Security Council." Captain Ho stood at attention with Sergeant and Lieutenant Dongha. Around them, representatives from every species in the galaxy applauded. 6 months ago, these same species had laughed at human marksmanship. They had mocked human soldiers. They had called humans weak and useless. Now they understood. Humans did not fight wars the way others did. They fought with geometry and patience, and the ability to see connections that no one else could imagine. As the ceremony ended, Sergeant looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the swarm was rebuilding again. Other threats waited in the darkness between galaxies. But now those threats would face something new, a species that did not aim at enemies. A species that aimed at victory itself. And they never missed.